Hello, and thank you for taking the time to join us today to hear more about gifts and wills and the work we do here at the RAF Benevolent Fund. My name is Kate Galbraith and I am the Legacy Marketing Manager. Today you will hear from our Controller, Air Vice Marshal Chris Elliott, as well as our wonderful Ambassador and RAF Benevolent Fund beneficiary, Rob Bugden. Rob will tell you how the fund helped him after he was involved in a parachute accident in 2016. Gifts and wills are vital to the fund, and indeed, close to 60% of our work is funded by gifts and wills. Without them, we would only be able to help a fraction of the people we do now and hope to help in the future. On that note, here's our Gifts and Wills film, and we will later hear from our controller, Chris, who joined the fund in 2020 after spending 35 years in the Royal Air Force.
Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few. Let us all welcome this chance to pay a small measure of the debt we owe.
For over 100 years, the brave servicemen and women of the RAF have fought and sacrificed to protect all our tomorrows. With a gift in your will to the RAF Benevolent Fund, you can help repay that debt. You can help support those who have served and those who will serve for all our tomorrows and long into the future.
Thanks, Kate. I'm delighted that you've taken the time to learn about gifts and wills and how much these valuable gifts make the work we do possible. Each year, we receive 250 new gifts that kind supporters have included in their will. Just last year, this came to 57% of our income. So from this, it is clear that gifts and wills are truly vital for us to support the Royal Air Force family. I joined the Royal Air Force as an air traffic controller at 19. And left as an Air Vice Marshal nearly 35 years later. And in between, became a military wife, my husband served in the army, and an RAF mum. My last job in the Royal Air Force was looking after people that make the Royal Air Force so great, welcoming new joiners, looking after well-being, and looking after the needs of families, and making sure that people had what they needed as they transitioned out of service. The Royal Air Force Benevolent Fund is therefore much more than a job for me. It's ensuring that the whole Royal Air Force family is supported at all times. And it is about making sure that every penny you entrust to us to build our resilience to rise to whatever challenge comes our way is spent in a way that makes you so proud that you are part of the Royal Air Force Benevolent Fund. The Royal Air Force family is made up of serving Royal Air Force, veterans and their own families, which totals around 1.2 million people. Our research tells us that those 1.2 million, there are 200,000 Royal Air Force family members experience some kind of welfare need. That is why our work is so important. In 2020, when the pandemic hit, we had to make sure our most vulnerable Royal Air Force family members received the support they needed. It was quite astonishing to see how adaptive and innovative the fund is. I watched with pride with how staff were bending themselves into whatever shape was needed to just get things done. The team identified quickly the most vulnerable of our veterans and got in touch to find out how best to support them. We contacted Royal Air Force Station Commanders to hear about the pressure points on the serving Royal Air Force and adjusted our services to meet these new needs. For example, staff members across the fund made 3,748 phone calls to 277 isolated members of our Royal Air Force family. These were older members who are either living on their own or who have significant caring responsibilities. I'd like to tell you about John, 83-year-old National Service veteran. He's one of the people I'm calling, and speaking with him for an hour last week was a highlight for me. Having that shared RAF experience makes it easy to talk, and a good chat is such a natural way to make sure we're staying alive to what people are experiencing and need. We also saw an increase in the take-up of services such as financial hardship grants, which went up by nearly 11% as the pandemic has progressed, and grants for funeral costs sadly increased by 12%. And finally, 61% more people used our benefits advice service as economic effects of COVID took hold. So you can understand how the challenges of 2020 impacted the Royal Air Force family, making the role of the Royal Air Force Benevolent Fund in supporting them even more vital. You're just about to view a short film about one of our inspiring ambassadors, Rob Budgeon. Rob is then going to tell you a little more about his experience personally. I hope you will agree that this is a good example of the important work that we do to reach out and support the Royal Air Force family when they are struggling. We don't have a one-size-fits-all approach. We look at the individual or family and work out what they need to be able to live as full and independent life as possible. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. As I mentioned earlier, we have Rob Budgeon, who is a former parachute jump instructor who was injured in a parachute accident during a training exercise in California. And Rob is now an ambassador for the RAF Benevolent Fund after receiving life-changing injuries. The fund has been by his side in the years which have followed, and shortly Rob is going to tell you a little bit about his experience and how he has been supported. But first, we have a short clip showing you some of the help that the fund has given Rob to get him to where he is now.
In January 2016, I went away on an exercise to California, and on the very last day of the exercise I am involved in a mid-air collision, and that collision unfortunately breaks my neck and damages my spinal cord.
So where we are now is on the front line of welfare delivery and support. We're really fortunate at the RAFBF that we have the funds available to make a massive difference to Rob's life. We are going to convert both the upstairs and the downstairs of this property and the surround to ensure that Rob can access all points and live as independently as possible, not just for today, but also for the future.
Today's been a pretty amazing day. Just come in to have a look around my future home. Looks absolutely incredible, and eventually it'll be good to get in and have my own home again, which I'm really looking forward to.
So every beneficiary that approaches the Benevolent Fund is completely different. So we take a full holistic view when assessing which property would suit their needs. So to start off with, we'd identify a property in an area which they had suggested to us. We would then screen this property with occupational therapists, surveyors, and to make sure there's amenities close to them where they can, access shops, GP surgeries, and more importantly, they're not socially isolated, because that's a massive problem.
Because I have been in the Air Force, the support we have is absolutely fantastic from the Benevolent Fund. I think there are 6 or 7 people in there. They're all in there doing all that work. In something negative, this has just been so positive. Not just the support I've had, but the support my family have had. And I'm now looking forward to cracking on. It all starts with a nice brand new home, so I can't wait.
And we're really lucky to have Rob with us here today. So without further ado, here's Rob.
Thanks very much, Kate. I'm sat in the living room of my phenomenal home where I've been here for 18 months. And without the fund, I wouldn't have this fantastic home, and possibly more importantly, my little dog Denzel wouldn't have such a fantastic home. So thank you. It's strange, really, sometimes when you think about it, where you come from. So sort of just over 5 years ago, 21st of January 2016 it was, as I'm walking down the tailgate of the C-130, I didn't know it at the time. It'd be the minute that changed my life, quite simply. And as I'm looking out, I've got this fantastic Californian vista, clear blue sky, mountains in the background, beautiful desert backdrop. I jump out the aircraft, the skydive goes phenomenally well. Open up my canopy at 5,000 feet, look up. It's exactly what I want to see. It's big and it's rectangular, but that is the last thing I remember. It took me about four years really to work out what had happened. And as we were coming into land, what we call a stack, for anybody who's seen the RAF Falcons jump, very similar to what they do, just not quite as tight. Myself and other lads collide. his knee meets my head, and then we fall about 900 feet and fortunately land on the sand and not the runway. I burst, dislocate or fracture all the vertebrae in my neck and damage my spinal cord at a C5, C6 level. So that means I'm paralysed from just below the shoulders down, and as well as all 4 of my limbs not working quite the way they should, all my major bodily functions, of course, been affected as well. And I like to think that, as well as the SBS who were on the ground that day, the medical teams, the fantastic doctors who were there for me from the get-go, the fund's been there as well. As without them, I wouldn't be able to live the life I currently do.
Thanks so much for sharing your story there, Rob. It's really great to hear how you've come through what must have been a really difficult time. You said obviously you served in the Royal Air Force, and as a member, you're part of the RAF family really right from the start, weren't you?
Yeah, I always have been, really. I think right from childhood, one of my earliest memories of my grandpa taking me to RAF St Morgan. I think he was in for 14, 15 years, including during the war. And taking me to RAF St Morgan and getting so excited to see the Red Arrows or the Falcons or the Battle of Britain Memorial flight. So it was amazing. Loved it. So I think going forward, when I joined up and had this amazing time meeting friends, and they're more than friends, they're family. And now with my involvement with the fund, that they are there with you for life right from the get-go. I mean, I'm going to nick something from Bob Gregg now for anyone that knows him, the little heart in the round, although that's so individual to you, and it generally means that they're right at the centre of the Air Force and the family.
Oh, that's really good to hear. So the RAF Benevolent Fund has had a really big impact on your life, do you feel?
It's had the biggest impact on my life, really. As I said earlier on, without them, I wouldn't have this fantastic home, nor would Denzel, my beautiful dog, and I wouldn't be able to live as independently as I do. And it's not just my home, it was the immediate needs grant for my parents to begin with, then it was a welfare break for myself, and going forward with the Disabled Holiday Trust, I've got 2 weeks in Portugal that I'm really COVID dependent, of course, that I'm really looking forward to. So I'm so thankful that they're there, because it doesn't bear thinking about where I'd be without them.
Oh, thanks, Rob. And now, how do you see the future for you?
Well, I'm proud to be an ambassador for the fund. I love going around and telling people about the fund and all the good things it does. I do a similar sort of thing with a drive project in Blesma called Making Generation R. But my big thing going forward is I want to set up my own gym, but built from the ground up for people with disabilities. As lots of places say they're accessible for people with disabilities. You know what? They're not. And I think physical fitness is so important to people, and that's really what I'd like to do going forward.
That sounds like a brilliant idea. I look forward to hearing how that goes for you. Thanks so much for joining us today, Rob. It's been a real pleasure to have you here. Thank you.
Thanks, Kate.
I hope seeing this one example from Rob of some of the work done here at the RAF Benevolent Fund has shown how truly important it is that we are here, not just now, but long into the future. We don't just help a person once, we are there whenever help is needed. And for some people, like Rob, that could mean that we are there at various points throughout their life. Unfortunately, Rob is not an exception. We help around 70,000 people every year with varying levels of needs, from the children of servicemen and women to 100-year-old veterans and their families. You have taken the time to watch this today because you are a supporter of the fund and the work we do. Some of you may have been supporters for a long time, and we wouldn't be here helping those members of the RAF family that need it most without you and your support. In the 7 years I have worked at the fund, I've met many members of the RAF family, all with their own reasons for supporting the fund. A wing commander who was running his first marathon in memory of fallen comrades, to a pilot suffering from PTSD after a traumatic flying incident and who wanted to fundraise in return for the support we had given him, to an RAF veteran who was leaving us a gift in her will because she would never forget the new green coat given to her as a child as a result of a welfare payment to her family from the RAF Benevolent Fund some 50 years ago. Gifts made in wills today help to ensure that we can be here 10, 20, 30 years from now, and will not only continue to help those that we are supporting now, but also those that will need to help in the years to come. Nobody knows what's around the corner. This may or may not be something you have considered before, and we're not asking you to make any big decisions now. That's for you and your family. And obviously we know that ensuring your loved ones are protected first is most important. What we are here to say is once they're secure, then you may think about leaving something behind to the service and charity that means something to you and your loved ones. Some of you may be sitting here having already left a gift in your will, and if so, then thank you. You have done your bit to ensure the RAF family of the future can get the help they need whenever they need it. If you are considering doing this, then please let us know. We can help you by providing any information you may need or direct you to our free will services. You can use our online and telephone will service, Fairwill, or a more traditional service using a designated solicitor through the National Free Wills Network. Please do get in touch via the link below or contact me direct to find out more information. My details are shown at the end of this film. At the RAF Benevolent Fund, we think that being part of the RAF family means looking after each other whenever and wherever that help is needed. With a gift in your will, you can help us be there to protect the RAF family, past, present and future. Thank you. Goodbye.